Javed, great to see you. Thanks for joining us here on A News. In the economy section, no doubt. Okay, has this been left in the new Prime Minister's hands? Has it been left in a mess here? The economy, was it going downhill already, or is this because of global crisis?
I think it's a combination of both reasons. It's a global crisis is obviously at the heart of the economic problems that Pakistan has been going through. Obviously, it is a war inside the Ukraine, because of which there is a disruption in the supply chain. There has been sanctions on Russia, and I think this has come down hard on the underdeveloping countries like Pakistan. The government had to go for a surge in the fossil prices. The fuel prices have gone up to 60–70% prices have gone up, and it has happened just within a matter of few weeks. So obviously there is a lot of resentment among the people, and as we speak, some of the people, some of the taxi drivers, they put their vehicles on fire as a mark of protest that this is unfair business the government has been conducting. The fact of the matter is that if Pakistan would not raise these fuel prices, that means it would risk to default. Pakistan is under intense IMF pressure to raise fuel prices, and Pakistan had to do this. Now, then there is also other side of the picture that this government has an option to go to Russia and get a relatively cheaper oil, because Russia needs more money and it doesn't bother who gets oil from it. And Pakistan can possibly get 30–40% concession. That is not happening. This is a bigger part of the problem, and that is where the international geostrategic politics comes in. The former Prime Minister Imran Khan says that his government had that option. He was exploring that option, and then the Americans came in between. They conspired and got his government dislodged, allegedly through military, and the coalition opposition party, as was the case then. So I think there is also many other factors which are collectively responsible for the economic crisis that Pakistan has been going through.
Interesting there, what you said there. Now, before we actually get to talking about the tea, we'll talk about that in a second, but interesting. So you're saying that geopolitical tensions-wise, that the US possibly unseated Imran Khan because Imran Khan was thinking about getting oil from Russia. Is that what you just said to me? Okay, so, I mean, all right, okay, if you're saying that, so how about the new, how about Sharif now, PM Sharif? Is he not now thinking of doing the same to help the Pakistani economy? Could that also get him unseated?
Well, I think that was just a tip of the iceberg of the reasons of unseating of the former Prime Minister. There were a lot of other things because of which Americans were unhappy. He refused Americans to provide them military bases inside Pakistan to attack neighboring Afghanistan. And then he was very outspoken the way Americans have been carrying out aggression in the Muslim countries, particularly in Afghanistan. And then I think he was not ready to become part of the American game plan. And the last thing that happened was his visit to Russia. It was just coincident, and the American thought that Imran Khan was going into Russia and China's bloc, and Pakistan technically has been an ally of the Americans in so many wars in the past. And this time around, Pakistan had a leader who sounded very independent, and he said that we are not going to listen to the Americans because Americans were already responsible for killing over 80,000 people in Pakistan. The fact Pakistan joined so-called war against terror. So I think he was a different leader, and there was a letter written by Pakistan's ambassador in Washington and sent it to the country's army chief, and country's army chief was allegedly threatened that in case the former Prime Minister, as he was then the Prime Minister, is not removed through a vote of confidence, Pakistan will have to face the consequences. So I think because of those threats, it seemed that perhaps Pakistan's few military generals, they feel threatened. And then there were also other domestic reasons. The military general were not happy with the then prime minister. They thought that he's going to bring in an army chief who would be less pro-USA and more pro-China and Russia. And I think because of those reasons, they decided to get rid of Prime Minister Imran Khan, as he was then. But again, this has backfired. The economy is in a bad shape. All the economic indicators which were there some 3 months back, there is a now downside of it. There was 6% growth rate. The export was relatively high. His government collected the highest tax rate. The import was a problematic. Remittances were there. Now the economy is a dwindling, but he was showing a sign of defiance to the IMF, and partly it was because of the political reasons, because he thought that he's going to be de-seated. He decided to continue providing subsidy on petroleum prices, and now this government has come under intense IMF pressure. It has withdrawn those subsidies, and which has led to unprecedented new cycle of price hike, because of which this government has become unpopular, and the former Prime Minister has given a new fresh call of protest on Sunday, and I think he can politically exploit the situation in his favor. But the terrible part is that opposition parties and also this ruling party, when they blame each other for the price hike, actually they peddle lies. The fact of the matter is, it is a Ukraine war, and part of the reason is that this government decided to stay with the American bloc at the cost of people of Pakistan. They could have gone to Russia. They decided not to go there to get a cheaper oil. And this is a bigger part of the problem.
I think this is definitely a dilemma that many countries, emerging market countries, growing countries, are going to have to face. They're going to have to make a decision whether to save their people or save the people of Ukraine. I'm not saying that has to be a choice that needs to be made, but it is becoming down to that. Let's talk a little bit about tea. Why focus on tea? Why is the PM sort of talked about tea, and why has he said, just cut back on tea, and we'll be fine? Isn't it strange a little bit?
I think government is pursuing a policy to basically reduce imports. Because of imports, Pakistan's import bill has gone up, and Pakistan has to seek loans from the friendly countries and the IMF. And the advice of the Minister for Planning and Development, I think that was a good piece of advice. People in Pakistan are addicted to tea. They take 2 to 3 cups every day. If they take 1 cup or at least 2 cups every day, it will reduce Pakistan's import bill. It's around $600 million US. And some people have responded back in a cynical manner. When it comes to reducing import bill, there's nothing wrong. And by the way, this tea carries the ingredients of caffeine, which is harmful to the human health. So excessive everything is bad. But the fact that the government has become very unpopular, and even if it comes up with something positive, it is taken in a negative shade.
You know what? Interesting. It's very interesting. I was just looking at your other imports. There's cereals, cotton, of course, many, many other imports. But interesting that he focused on tea. If they take away our tea, what pleasures are we going to have left in the world? Anyway, Javed Rana, always a pleasure to see you, sir. Thank you so much for joining me here on A News. Stay safe and stay well, sir.
Thank you. The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point, and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.